Hey guys, this is Bruce. Welcome to ConvoCourses Podcast, where we talk about all things governance, risk, and compliance. And today, got a special treat, just like every other month, whenever I finish another book, every few months, I guess, I'll have a book and I'll give it away for free or for a low amount so that I can help to promote the book. And today, the book I'm giving away is like an introduction to governance, risk, and compliance. No, it's a introduction to governance, risk, and compliance, and it's a partner of this book right here. It's a partner of this book right here. So I did a cybersecurity fundamentals best practices book, and now the partner to that book is right now out on Amazon on KDP. I haven't done the print copy yet, or the hard copy, or the audio book. All that stuff takes a little bit more time. Takes me a little bit more time, but it's on the way. So let me get into this. What I'm going to do is show you what book you can get right now on KDP for free. I'm looking for reviews. So even if you don't get a review, if you get the book, it actually helps me out with the algorithm. So that's why you do this. All right, let me show you what we got here. So this is the book right here. It's the cover. Looks a lot like this. If you're on TikTok, here's how it looks. Cybersecurity fundamentals, best security practices. We released this one about a few months ago. I think late last year or something. I can't remember when I released this one. But this book right here breaks down like best practices, and it comes from the CIS V8. And it's from the perspective of somebody who is in the field. So that's what I'm just breaking it down as simple as possible. And these are things that you need to know when you get into cybersecurity. Some of the things you need to know. This one expands into governance, risk, and compliance, and that's the focus of this book. So what I'm going to do is give you an overview today. I'm going to start off with an overview of the book and what's in it so that you can get a taste of it before you even download it. And then, if later you want to get the hard copy of it, whatever, then you can. And if there's a lot of interest in this book, I'm even thinking about expanding this into like a course or something, some video, something, involving video. So here it is right here. Here's what you get when you get it. And we're going to start off with an introduction, and then we go into governance, risk, and compliance. So we start off with what is governance, risk, and compliance. What is GRC? What I start with is an explanation of how this industry, cybersecurity industry, treats InfoSec versus cybersecurity. And I don't typically delineate between the two, but I'm very aware that the industry itself does. So normally you have something called information security and you have cybersecurity. Really, they're so similar. The reason I don't separate them is because they're so similar that you're doing a lot of the same things. But I will admit that there is a difference. So information security is usually talking about the documentation piece. What are we doing? And you might think of, what does documentation have to do with cybersecurity? It has a lot to do with cybersecurity. Documentation helps you have continuity. It helps you set up processes and procedures. It tells you what's going on. It includes things like logging, audit logging, which is an integral part of incident response and doing threat assessments and doing all kinds of analysis. Information security is super important. More importantly, it also includes things that are outside of the technical aspect of cybersecurity, like protecting physical protection of the assets that house that important data. That's information security. So it's pretty broad. Cybersecurity, on the other hand, while it can include some of that stuff, it's usually when people talk about it in this industry, they're talking about securing the firewall, implementing a firewall. They're talking about putting security features, actually hands on the keyboard, security features on a laptop or a desktop or a server, implementing an operating system, installing an operating system. It's more technical, it's more in the weeds, and it includes other disciplines within that technical area, that technical category, like network security, mobile security, cloud security. There's a whole bunch of things that go under cybersecurity that where you can go deeper and deeper into the technical aspects. But what I like I said, what I do is normally I marry those two things together. I use them synonymously. I just say it's cybersecurity. All of it's one big thing. Where does GRC come in? Where does it fit into this puzzle piece? It embraces all of this. So the closest thing I can explain with the easiest way, simplest way is all the stuff that you do in information security, all the stuff you do in cybersecurity, and all of the different disciplines are all part of governance, risk, and compliance. And that'll make more sense as we explain all of this. Governance, risk, and compliance is huge. It incorporates all of this stuff. And so that's kind of what I talk about here. And then what I do is quickly break these things apart. Governance, risk, and compliance is actually three separate disciplines that are put together, but that really need each other. They're married together. They cannot leave one another. Governance is how do we control and manage all the IT resources? That's what it is in a nutshell. That's how do we govern, how will we control and manage the processes, the people, allocating resources. That's what governance is for our enterprise, for our organization. The R is for risk, specifically risk management. How are we going to manage the risks? Our security level, how do we manage that? So we have to identify, we have to assess, and we have to control the risk. That's how the vulnerabilities and the threats, that's how we manage our risk. Compliance deals with how do we adhere to the laws, the regulations, and the standards within our industry, within our government, within our nation state, wherever we happen to be. So that's governance, risk, and compliance. But there's so much overlap between those three things that it's easier to just say GRC. And we'll explain where the overlap comes in. Now, this first chapter keeps it very broad. It's very high level, and it's talking about the importance of governance, risk, and compliance, how it's different from in each sector, because it's in the banking sector is different from the healthcare sector is different from the retail sector. But the crazy thing is, once you know one sector's GRC, it's pretty easy to go to another sector of because once you understand how it works, they're doing the same thing with a little bit different language in each one. I know this because I've been in the government sector. I've helped the manufacturing sector, and then healthcare, and then financial sector. I've done all three of those in the private sector and the public sector. So, and I'm telling you, and I've done different frameworks, and I'm telling you, like, it's once you know one, you can very quickly understand the others because they're all using the same principles. That's what we talk about, the principles of GRC. We talk a little bit about the history of GRC, where that term GRC comes from. It actually has a beginning, and then we expand on that and talk about that. So, what I do in this book is I break down each one of the sectors in their own chapter. Like governance has its own chapter. Risk management has its own chapter. So let's go straight to governance. Governance. What is governance? Again, governance is controlling, managing something. In this case, we are controlling and managing the processes, the procedures, the information technology, the infrastructure of our industry, of our organization, our company, our government department, whatever it happens to be. And governance is not something that's just for managers. I mean, what pops in your mind with governance is immediately managers, but they're not the only ones who have to do governance. All of us are responsible in an organization to do some level of governance. If you're on your specific system, if you are a system engineer, if you're a system help desk person, all of us have some part in helping to manage the security of our enterprise. But of course, there are some main players here, and those main players are managers and leaders, and they have to have accountability, transparency, fairness, responsibility, independence. So these are all some of the main tenets of having a manager who's implementing effective governance. Um, we talk a little bit about the structures in an organization, which is important to governance. And then we define roles. So this is important because there's specific roles that when you hear it, you're like, okay, I understand. It helps you to understand governance. So what we talk about here is board of directors, executive management, C-level exec, department managers, and then project managers. And then there's some things that some areas where you wouldn't normally associate it with governance, like project management, but it is because they're helping to manage and allocate resources and time to a certain project. And so they're an integral part to governance. But they're also stakeholders. Stakeholders are a very huge part of governance because we can't really do anything. They're the eyes and ears and hands of the organization. Stakeholders are super important. The stakeholder is a person who has something to lose or gain in a project or in a system. So it might be a system engineer, it might be a help desk person, it might even be a user who's on that system. If that system goes down, they have a stake in that system going down because then they can't do their work. So it's all the people who are directly involved with that particular system. And this makes more sense if you have an organization that has a lots of different systems that work together, because you might have system A and that has 15 systems, and then system B has 100,000 systems all over the world, and then system C has one system, but they all interact with one another, and each one has their own stakeholders, their own people who interact with that particular system. System A stakeholders might not have nothing to do with system C. So stakeholders are a really important part of governance and getting stuff done. And so we talk a little bit about that. Communication is a huge part of governance. How does the organization effectively communicate across the organization? They use regular updates, tailored messages. They have multiple channels. There's lots of different ways. And so that's why you start to see, like, this would apply for Walmart as much as it would apply for a medical institution. So they have to have good governance. They have to have a way to report throughout the organization. So there's just basic things that need to be met. And one of the biggest things in governance is the documentation. Policies is one of the most effective ways that they get their message out. Procedures, standards, all of those things that they write and say, look, yea, verily, everyone will do X, Y, and Z. This is how we're going to do things. So a policy is super important to an organization's governance because it's going to define and document what they're trying to do. Crystallize their mission statement in the form of security. So we talk a little bit here about the overall tasks of somebody who's in governance. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because we're going to go to the next section. One thing I will say is what I'll do here that's special about this book is that I talk about here's how NIST cybersecurity framework does governance. Here's how ITIL speaks on governance. Here's how ISO 27001 and COBIT talks about governance. Here's specifically what they say. Here's the areas that you want to look at for COBIT. Here's the evolution of COBIT and how it started talking about governance more and more. So I'm talking specifically about frameworks. Those frameworks and standards and regulations do talk about governance. So that's another thing that's in this book that you won't find in other material. Now, the next chapter is on risk management. Anything you do has to have some level of risk. And what we're doing with this is we're identifying what vulnerabilities we have, what threats are more likely to exploit those vulnerabilities that we have. And we have to identify them and then help secure them to manage the level of risk we have. You might be saying, well, why don't we just get rid of all risk? There's no such thing. There's no such thing as getting rid of all risk, especially it's not in your life that you're going to get rid of all risk. It's not, your kids are not going to avoid all risk. And definitely an organization is not going to avoid all risk. The larger the organization, the more risk there is. And the best thing we can do as professionals is manage the risk. That means reduce the risk as much as possible. That's the name of the game. And so risk, the R in there stands for risk, but specifically we're talking about risk management. Now, there's certain roles. Now, even though all of us in an organization have a part in controlling the risk, in managing the risk, there's certain roles that have more direct impact on risk management. And that's the risk assessors, people who go out and run scans and then give that report to the upper level leadership, and then system administrators. You might not think that they're a part of the risk, but they are a huge part of risk management because they're the ones who actually apply the security controls. They're ones who maintain the infrastructure. So they're an important part of the organization. And this is not just server administrators. This is firewall administrators, network engineers who are administering and managing the information, the actual switches and routers in our organization. C-suite execs, they have to be the ones who make the final decision on residual risks, sign off on risks that they know that's there. And there's other tasks and roles that are factors. Another way that we manage risk is actually applying security controls, multi-factor authentication, user education, the SOC, Security Operations Center. All of these are ways that we help spread the risk on everyone, not just on one person. The risk is not just on information on the cybersecurity person. It's not just on the InfoSec guy. It's spread across everyone by having things like multi-factor authentication. Enforcing security helps to spread the risk to everyone in the organization. It's a very, very important tool to help to spread the risk to everyone. Okay, let's keep going here. Risk strategy. So this one's big. So risk strategy is something where the organization has to define what level of risk they're willing to take. And they're not always going to call it a risk strategy. That's not always what they're going to call it. Sometimes what they'll do is they will publish their risk strategy in a security policy, or they can call it whatever they want. But what they're doing is they're defining things like what framework are we going to use? What regulations are we beholden to? Which ones do we have to meet? Right? If you're in the retail sector, it's going to be PCI DSS. If you're in the government sector, it's going to be NIST 800, NIST cybersecurity framework. If you're in a financial sector, you might have to do Sarbanes-Oxley. You might also need to do PCI DSS as well. So all of this will be defined in a security policy, or they might call it information policy. They might call it an information management policy, whatever they call it, but they have to define how they're going to control the risk. And one of the things is they do is they define, okay, we have to fall under FISMA. We have to fall under Sarbanes-Oxley. And there's many other ones, ISO 27001. And these standards and these frameworks are important because they actually break down, like you have a low, a medium, and a high, or a low, a moderate, a high, and a critical. They help you to define how to measure those risks. So that's why those frameworks and those standards are important. Another thing they're going to define is what level of risk they're willing to take. They'll explain that in that document in some way, shape, or form. Another thing that's really, really important is they'll define, okay, here's how we conduct risk assessments. We're going to identify vulnerabilities. We do this every 3 months. We do this once a year. We do this, whatever it happens to be. But the organization is going to actually define when they're going to run those risks and how they're going to run the risk. It's usually going to be at a high level. They're not going to specifically name the tools sometimes in the security policy, but this is how they're going to define how they're going to find and mitigate the risks. Another thing that's really important that they're going to do that I explain in this book is, and I'm kind of glossing over some of the important pieces here, and going straight to the ones that are highest priority, is risk treatment. Risk treatment is risk response. That is another name for it, is risk response. So what that means is, how are we going, once we have a risk, we know that we have a measurement of a risk. We have a low, a moderate, and a high, or a low, however they're doing their matrix, or it could be even just be a numbering system. But a low, let's say that their scoring is a low, a moderate, and a high, or whatever. Once we know that it's a low and we can't fix it it's okay. We have 6 months to fix it. We have 8 months to fix it, whatever it happens to be. How are they going to treat the risk? What are they going to do when we find when they find a risk? So that's important because sometimes you're not always going to be able to fix it immediately. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's going to be something that we can't fix because we don't have the people to do it. We don't have enough money right now to do it. It's going to take too much time. It's supposed to be done in 3 days, but it's going to take us 8 months to do it. We don't have the equipment right now. We have to test the equipment before we do it. There's many different reasons why you wouldn't immediately remediate a risk or fix a risk. So risk treatment means remediation, fixing it immediately. Mitigation, we can't fix it the way that it's supposed to be fixed, but we can do other things to reduce the risk of that weakness. Avoidance, maybe we're going to put this system in, but it has too much risk. We're going to remove it. We're going to remove and avoid the risk altogether by removing it. And then sharing the risk, we're going to hire another organization to come in to help us to lower the risk because we don't have the subject matter experts to deal with PCI DSS. We're going to share the risk with this other outside organization who does this for a living. Accept the risk. That means, look, we can't fix this. There's nothing we can do right now, but what we can do is we can reduce the risk in other ways. And we're going to document the problem and identify exactly why we can't fix it immediately, or maybe we can't fix it ever, right? And then is the organization willing to accept this risk? Sometimes the answer is no, and they have to do something completely different. And then an action plan. In the government, they call this a plan of action and milestone, but all it is basically is a document. The private sector, I've heard it called an action plan or a system action plan or whatever. They have different names for it. But what it is a documentation that says, we can't fix it right now. Here's why we can't fix it. But here's the things we're doing to do in the meantime. And we're tracking this day by day or week by week or month by month. We have milestones put together. There's a whole team working on it right now, and it should be done by X date. And then we're every week or every month, we're tracking this particular project to get this thing done. That's an action plan. We're doing something right now to fix it, but we can't fix it immediately. It's going to take time. So that's what we talk about with risk management. We also go into, just like we did with governance, we go into how do the frameworks address risk management? How does NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0, for example, address risk? And so I talk a little bit about that in the book. And then how does NIST 800, which is a whole different thing than NIST Risk Management Framework, how does NIST 800 deal with risk? And then we talk about other frameworks like ISO 27001. How does it deal with risk management? All of these frameworks, what they all have in common is that they do have a way to treat the risk. And what you'll notice is when you go through this book or when you start to learn more about this stuff is that they all kind of sound the same. They're saying the same thing, but like doing it in different ways. And so that's why I say, like, if you know one, you kind of can pick up the other ones very quickly. So I talk about COVID and there's many, many others that we could talk about, but we keep it to that one. Now we go into the chapter of compliance. So compliance is what I do. Like compliance is really the main thing that I do. And compliance is dealing with the regulations, agreements, laws of your industry, laws of your nation state, laws of a state, whatever it happens to be. So compliance, what you'll notice is it's really, really important as an industry gets larger and as your team or company gets larger, governance becomes more and more important. Like governance and regulations are not important, it's always important, but what you'll notice is eyeballs are not on that small mom and pop place, right? If you have a small one store mom and pop that's in your town, of course there's some regulations they have to do. They have to do food. If they have alcohol served that, they have to have some of those compliance, but they're probably loosey-goosey on the cybersecurity stuff. They're probably like a little loose on some of the compliance requirements, but as the organization gets larger and they're serving more people, they have more of an impact on the industry or the environment or the local, wherever they happen to be, then it gets more important because their impact on the industry, on their town, on their nation, on wherever starts to get bigger. And so now they have to have a whole team that does nothing but compliance, like making sure our food compliance is good, like making sure our kitchen is up to code. And it's the same thing with cybersecurity. The larger the more important the data is that you're ingesting and that you're processing and transmitting, the more important it is. And the more you do of it, the more critical it is that you adhere to compliance. In the US, we have this big issue where companies are getting so damn big, but the last thing they do is compliance. And we're paying for it. Like the people who put their information and are trusting in these companies are paying the price for having non-compliance. And that's why when you see these gigantic hacks of 3 billion records being hacked and everyone's information being exposed to the dark web or being pulled into another country or something like that, it's because compliance has been put on the back burner. It's something they do last. And that's the worst way to do compliance. So I'll get off my high horse and keep going through these. There's a way to identify what requirements you need. What questions you're going to ask yourself is, what does my organization do? What industry are we in? What are we in the healthcare sector? Are we in the government? That'll very quickly define what industry regulations you need to abide by. Where are we located? Because another compliance issue is your city might have its own compliance. Your state might have compliance, province, country. If you're in a multinational union like NATO or something, they're going to have certain laws and regulations that you have to abide by. Another thing that you want to ask is, what type of information are we processing? Is it classified? Is it government information? Is it private information? Is it proprietary? Is it scientific, proprietary information that we have to protect? Is it publicly available information? What type? So all of these things, these questions are going to define what regulations you need to apply to you. Each sector defines further what things you need to do. For example, if you're in the healthcare industry, you have pharmaceutical, biotech, medical. All of these different sectors might have little extra things that need to be done as opposed to financial. So what do you do? Are you in banking? Are you insurance, fintech? What sector are you in? So that's going to further define what you need to do as an organization to comply with the laws and regulations. Now, there's a lot of complaints about laws and regulations, but the reason why we're getting these massive hacks is because organizations are not taking it seriously. It's usually the hacks. What's crazy is the hacks are usually very simple things. Take you back to almost 20 years ago now. Was it 20 years, 15 years ago? I don't know. But the DNC got hacked. The Democratic National Committee got hacked. And the hack is very simple. It wasn't, you would think it was super complex, but no, it was very simple. All they did was do a phishing attack on somebody who gave their passwords up. That's what they did. And then they were able to get all the files, and it influenced the entire election. So that was just GRC. That was basic GRC could have fixed that problem. And that's why governance, risk, and compliance is very, very important. And so that's what's in this book. There's a lot more chapters. I'm only halfway through the book. I go into specific industries, and it's all entry level. This book is especially important to somebody who's trying to get in this industry. Like if you are an IT person and you're trying to level up, you're trying to get into this industry. I'm giving you the basic tenets of where you can start to get into this, and it'll really, really help you to figure out where you want to focus. It doesn't go super deep into any one sector. Like here's a section where I'm talking about this education sector and why it's important to have FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. That Will Reed brought this up in when I was interviewing him, and it's a great point. This is something that an organization, if you are a university, K through 12, if you are handling students' important information, this is an important regulation. So what I do is I weigh your appetite. I say, look, here's some of the things that a school is going to use. And here's why they use it. Now, if you happen to be in a school, if you're an IT professional and you want to level up from there, this is going to point you in the right direction of things that you can know, where to look in your organization to get knowledgeable of being a GRC person. By the end of this book, you'll have a very good understanding of what GRC is and where you need to go to increase your knowledge base and to go deeper into this subject matter. So that's in the book. Right now, it's free for about 4 days, 4 days left on the calendar on Amazon, KDP. Get it, download it. Go ahead and leave me a review if you like. You don't have to. Even the act of downloading really does help me out, but that 5-star also helps out quite a bit. It is a companion to this book right here. I don't have the hard copy yet for the book. That's coming. I'm still working on that. When I turn this off, I'm going to go work on that. But yeah, this one right here was the first book in the series, Cybersecurity Fundamentals, Best Security Practices. And this one just talks about, it's a small little book, just talks about like things that you should do to get things that you need to know for cybersecurity as a whole, the best security practices that all IT professionals should know. And really where this is really effective is that once you know where to focus, you'll be able to put that on your resume. So, okay, I've done that. I've done network security. I've done access control. I've done, once I describe all these things, then you'll understand like where to go. And also map these two frameworks as well a bit in the book. So that's it, guys. I'm going to take some questions. I'm not going to stay too long on this today. And I've got some people joining me. Thanks, Larry, for your comments. I appreciate you. Larry says governance, risk management, project management. You're speaking my language right there. Yep, that's what it is. Project managers are definitely part of the governance space. This is great stuff. I work in compliance, and this should definitely help a lot. I'm glad to help. That's what this is all about. And Loveth says, thanks. This stuff means a lot to newbies. Thank you. I appreciate you. And then Richard West says, hey, Bruce, for governance, risk, and compliance, here's the questions. Okay. For GRC reports, you described as a consultant, on average, how long did it take you to write them? So when I was a consultant, it really depends on the report you're doing. So when I was in the private sector, we had a whole process. If it was just me by myself, it would take better part of a week or maybe 2 weeks to do it. But we had a process where we had a team that would just pull down. So we had a 3-step process. We had one process where we would collect all the data, raw data, whether it came from scans, network scans, Wi-Fi scans, or a physical walkthrough or whatever. We would gather all of that into like the rawest form, right? And then we have another team or another part of the process that was on a separate team that would put it they would format it, right? And the formatting was based off of whatever organization we were doing the work for. So, but typically we have a standard template, and then I would take that and I would write it based off of everything that I saw, based off of, I would have a measurement of what things to put on that document. So my piece of gathering the data, I would be the person gathering the data in the beginning. That depend on what I was doing. Like gathering the data, if I was doing like a Wi-Fi scan, that'd take like a day or something. I'd do a walk around or whatever, but I might have to fly to the organization. It really depends on what we have to do and how large the organization is, because it might take more than a day to actually gather that information. It depends on how large the organization is, how many devices we're dealing with, all that kind of stuff. So I guess I could just give you a specific example. I was dealing with one small retailer, and the scan of a Wi-Fi took 1 day to gather the information. Just walk around, talk, do an interview, gather that information. Then I would give it to my other team who would do a formatting. They would take all of the data from the Wi-Fi scanner, and then they would put it in this like a document, right? Very quickly. That was another day. And then once I got it back, it would take me 1 day to actually write it up, do like an executive summary and a breakdown of all the details and the priorities of where they need to do, what they need to do, steps 1 through 3, and then we would give it to them. So that one report might have taken 3 days, but that was for a small organization where they had one site, right? It depends on the size. Now, converse that with another organization like the government. So the government they'll have hundreds of sites. So just to figure out what sites to do might take 3 days, right? And then combine that with, okay, now we know what sites to go to. We have a whole team that's going to go there. We have a 3-person team that's going to go to these 3 sites that we've picked out of 100. That whole thing with the travel and everything like that, that's another 3 days, maybe 5 days. I don't know. I mean, if you have to go to each site, that might take another 5 days, a week. That might take a week. And then they gathered all the information. So we're already talking about 8 days. We're already talking about 8 days. Now we've got all information. We're going to put in a report. That report is a large report because it's including 3 sites. Let's say the report takes 2 days. So now we're talking about 10 days, right? We're talking a better part of 2 weeks right now to do that one report for 2 different sites. It depends. So to answer your question, it depends on the size of the organization. It depends on the how much resources you have to throw at it. Normally, if you have all the data, I think this is your question. If you have all the information that you need to do the report, like the information's already been gathered, right? The gathering, you have to factor in how many days that's going to take to meet with the organization to actually go to the site. Or if you don't even have to go to the site, you have another way of getting there. All that takes time. But let's take that out of it and say we're just writing. How long does that take? Right? Let's focus on that piece. Normally that takes me a couple days with a peer review. I would say 3 days with a peer review, right? That's a proper way to do it. That I would write it, I would recheck what I'm doing, and then somebody peer reviews it, probably 3 days. That's me already have all the data. Doesn't include the travel time or whatever I had to do there, and or any rewrites that I have to do. I would say typically 3 days of me doing nothing else, and with some help. That's 3 days on an average site, but it really is going to depend on the size. So I wouldn't be comfortable with saying if you came to me and say, hey, I want you to do a report on my westinc.com site, I want you to give me a risk report. I'm gonna have a lot of questions. How many sites do you have? What kind of site is it? What is it built on? Do you need me to come there and look at your site? I'm gonna have a lot of questions. Are you factoring that into my report, or just to write it down? You've already given me 100% of the data, and then I take the data that you've given me, the raw data, and typically it'll take me like 3 days to do it. Usually about 3 days with a peer review and everything. That's my average time of all the stuff I've done. 3 days. If a government, man, that's a huge site, is going to take longer than 3 days. It's going to take a week or 2 because they have so much information. It's going to depend on the size of the organization. So hope that answers your questions. Let me see. Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you guys for watching. Are you streaming as well? Yeah, I'm streaming right now. I should be, hopefully. Let me see. Thank you. Well delivered. Appreciate you guys watching. Thanks a lot. Do you have an online course out or coming out? I have one, but it's for government. It's for people who are in the U.S. government doing NIST 800. So it's for information system security officers, and it walks you through start to finish what you need to do as an information system security officer. It's not talking about philosophy or fluff. It goes straight to the point. Here's the things you need to do. Here are the tasks. Here are the places you need to go to. Here's some resources for you. It's something that I put together because something I always wanted when I first started. And so that's out right now. And I've got some other courses. If you go to ConvoCourses.com, that's the student portal for it. It has all of those courses and stuff like that. So yeah, I have one out right now. It's not for beginners. It's not this GRC stuff. It's very specific in one industry. But I might do one. I'm thinking about doing one for everyone for a GRC entry level that's based off of that book that I showed earlier, because I feel like I have something to say with that one where I could help a lot of people out. Okay, I've got some questions here on TikTok. I haven't been ignoring you guys. I just had to get through. I wanted to walk everybody through that book so you know what you're going to get once you go to the site and get that. Now, if you're looking for the book, by the way, it's in the link. Link is in the description below. Link is in, if you're on TikTok, link is in description on my profile. Go to ConvoCourses.net, or you can just go to ConvoCourses.net, and the first link there is going to be that book that I'm putting out right now. Got a lot more stuff coming out. If you're interested in this kinds of stuff, if you're just linked into this and you're trying to get in this field, or you're already in this field but you're trying to expand your horizons, your information base, then follow me on ConvoCourses.com. Go ahead and log in, get on the newsletter, go to ConvoCourses on YouTube, on TikTok. That's where most of my stuff is coming out right now. And any changes that I make, I will be announcing it on in those channels. All right, let me see here. Any questions on TikTok? Let me see here. I had some that popped up. NIST mostly applies to U.S. territories. Yeah, that's true. Mostly it's the states, U.S. territories, Commonwealth, the federal government. But I'm surprised that actually a lot of universities use it. A lot of other governments use it. It always shocks me when I see it, but a lot of organizations use NIST CSF, which is not just government based, and then NIST 800, which is always a shock to me when I see anyone besides the federal government using NIST 800. But a lot of people use NIST. It's not just U.S. federal specific. I know the state of Louisiana uses it. I know that multiple states use it, and some universities use it, and then even other governments base some of their stuff off of NIST because it's just very thorough, and it's very deep and very thorough. It's the most thorough, arguably the most thorough framework out there, and was done by multiple departments within the U.S. and within departments of other countries as well. Like, it's very robust. So it's not just U.S. But you're right. Mostly U.S. territory uses it. That's right. That's correct. Let me see. EU mostly works with ISO 27001. That's right. That's right. So in my book, that's one of the things I talk about, is that different countries have different frameworks and standards that they focus on. The U.S. mostly uses NIST 800, NIST CSF. The EU mostly uses, and I think UK as well as possibly Australia, mostly base their stuff off of ISO 27001. But I'm always surprised that sometimes they'll incorporate NIST CSF or NIST 800 in there. Like, you'll be reading through their stuff and they'll reference NIST 800. Canada does that too. So yeah, ISO 27001, you think Europe. If you're thinking about the U.S. territories and states and federal government, it's going to be the NIST 800. And then you can get into industries, right? Now, of course, China has their own, Australia has their own, Indonesia has their own, Singapore has their own framework and stuff like that. But each industry also has their own additional frameworks and security controls that you have to be mindful of. And this is important if you're trying to get in GRC, because if you already happen to be in the healthcare industry, for example, you actually know certain things that I'm not super deep on healthcare. So you are probably deeper than me on healthcare. And then if you happen to be in the retail sector and you're doing IT there, and you're trying to transition, hell, if you're doing anything in the retail sector, there are going to be some standards that you are mindful of that I am not. I just haven't had that much time in just retail sector. I've done a little bit, but not a lot. So every industry, every country, nation states, and sector within industries will have certain things that they do that another one does not, or do a little bit differently. All right, let me see. So great point, CyberSec guy. Let me see. Next one is, what's my best route to entry? What's my best route entry role into cybersecurity? So I would say it depends on where you happen to be. And I say this a lot, I sound like a broken record, but that's the truth. Like, it really is going to depend on where you're at. I can't sit here. If I sit here and told you, hey, just go ahead and get a CCNA and then you're gonna make 100,000. It's not realistic, because not everybody can even pass that. Hell, I failed the CCNA. It's hard. Years ago, like, I retook it. I took it once, I passed it, then you took it years later. It's hard as hell. It will be a lie for me to sit here and tell you, oh, just get a security plus and you're in. Like, that's all you do, and then get a cybersecurity entry level job. No, you begin where you are. Like, start where you are. Is the best thing I can tell you is this. Number one, if you happen to be starting from zero, from scratch, from nothing, you're not a student, you don't work in this industry, you have no background in IT. The first thing you need to do is get the knowledge. So when you think about a role right now, first thing you need to do is sit down, go to Google, get some free resources going, and just get the IT fundamentals under your belt. Like, learn, read books, go to free resources online. You might not even want to do this. This is not for everybody. Like, if you're a window shopper, you figure out if you're a window shopper first, because you might be a window shopper. You'll know if you're a window shopper if you just watch the videos, but you're not actually you're not going deeper. You're not digging deeper. What do I mean by digging deeper? Is setting up labs, getting hands-on, setting up labs. That's the next step. That is the natural next step for you. Getting hands-on. Now, let's say you're a student, right? You're a student, you're in college, so you already have the knowledge. Whether you're a student or not, you already have the knowledge. You're an IT geek. Now you want to be thinking about a role. The best entry-level role, in my personal opinion, for cybersecurity is actually help desk, right? And you might be thinking, well, that's not a cybersecurity role. Help desk is going to help you get your foot in the door in information technology. And it's going to get you a solid understanding of what you are protecting. Help desk is hands-on in an organization. It doesn't pay a lot in the beginning. It's not, you might have to work locally. Probably ain't going to be able to work from home doing that. You might have to travel. I know people went the military just to get some hands-on IT work. So it's going to be hard, is what I'm telling you. But you want to get your foot in the door is the first thing you should do. And then when you're in that role, you'll start to do cybersecurity in that role. Start putting that stuff on your resume. All the cybersecurity stuff you do, put that on your resume. And then you can start thinking about an actual role specifically for cybersecurity. But you got to get your foot in the door first. And before you even get your foot in the door and do that help desk job, you need to get the knowledge first. So there's levels to this. It's not just a one and done, just get a security plus and then boom, you're magically making 100,000 and living in Bali. You know what I mean? Like some people would have you believe. This is hard work. This is not get rich quick. This is hard work. But once you get here, some of the rewards has been, I have a high paying job that allows me to invest in real estate. It allows me to invest in my family. It allows me to build businesses. It allows me to do stuff like this, my dream is to write. Like, I'm doing it now because of cybersecurity. I don't have to write this. I could do whatever. I could do what I want. I have enough income to where I can invest in myself to do other things I've always wanted to do. And so that's one of the great benefits of this career path. It's not been easy. It's not easy. It's not an easy career path. The most stable, yes, stability wise, one of the most stable, but is it easy? It's not for everybody. I can tell you that for sure. It's not for everybody. The technical piece, if you go technical, it's not for everybody because it gets hard. And if you happen to do GRC, you have to talk to people. Some people are not kind, not nice. They're in different developments of their spiritual journey. Let's see. Cybersecurity guy says, hold up. Is it mostly SEC guys who do the implementation and rollout and management? No. No, I would say no. No. It depends on what solution is being implemented. Like if you're doing a purely cloud solution, you need a cloud architect. You need somebody who's going to come in there and design your cloud infrastructure, and they're the ones who are implementing it. Security, hopefully it's not put in as an afterthought. It should be put in with the mindset of as we're implementing this, here's some security features we're going to make sure that are in there as a part of our whole rollout of this thing. Another one, like if your solution is software, maybe you have a software some software that you're putting together, and you're trying to get this thing marketed or whatever. You need software engineers, you need DevOps, you need developers to put that together, and those guys will hopefully have a either sharp security person on their team to implement the security in the code and the source code as they're writing it, or they have a whole separate dude or somebody who's just very good at security as they're putting it out there. But no, security guys are usually, so they're supposed to be a part of the rollout process, but they're not the person actually rolling it out. A lot of times they're usually just a very important part of that team. Let me see here. Going through questions. If I skip your question, it's because I just didn't see it. Interview tips. Interview tips for cybersecurity for this field. Interview tips. I got a whole couple video series about this, but very quickly I can give you a couple. My number one tip is to thoroughly read the description of the job. Look at their job, look at your interview, read both of them, and then practice how you're going to respond to make a question out of every requirement that they have in their job description. This is how you are going about vetting the organization before the interview even starts. I would record myself doing the interview, looking directly into the camera, making eye contact, and then ask the question, make it like a set of questions based off of their job requirements, and then answer the question. Record yourself and watch yourself back. Watch how you speak. Watch how your respiratory pauses, your how you move your hands, and then focus on communicating effectively. If you watch yourself, you'll start to see different flaws in the way you speak. And if you practice enough times, it'll just flow in the interview. You'll just flow. It'll just come out of you. And that's my main thing, is practice before you get in there. Another thing I would say is don't be afraid to don't BS people. Don't be afraid to say, I'm not sure about that. I haven't done it before. I'm not what I normally say is, they ask me about cloud technology. I'm like, well, that's not something I've implemented before, but I'd be excited about learning that getting on your team and learning that particular technology. I've always wanted to be a part of a cloud infrastructure team, and I'm excited to learn about it. I'll say, I don't know, but I'd be interested to find more out. Something like that. And don't be afraid to ask questions. When they get to the last part of the interview and they say, do you have any questions for us? Couple things you can ask. Number one, ask if there's some red flags, like ask if they have any travel. For me, that's a red flag. Because I want to know how much travel, if there is any. I don't mind traveling, but I was in a job where I was doing a lot of travel, and that it wasn't cool. Another one is that you want to ask is, Are there any difficult customers on your we'll have to deal with? We will have to deal with, right? That's another question you want to ask. Another question is what will you guys be expecting of me when I get in this role? And this is it's kind of like psychologically tricking them because you're saying what are when I get into this role, you see what I'm saying? When I get into this role, what do you guys expect from me? You're already putting yourself there, and then they have to entertain it. So those are some of the tips. I I really have to know specifically what you're getting into. Like if it was a SOC analyst, there'd be certain questions I would ask them, or certain things how to answer them. Or if you're a risk management framework person, there's certain ways that you would answer certain things. But those are like the main tips I would give you. A really good resource for you to help. Don't use it too much or use it as a crutch. Is AI, ChatGPT or Claude or some Anthropic, something like that, to take their job description, put it into AI, and say, generate some questions. I'm going to do an interview for this, right? And another thing you can do is take your resume and the job description and say, how can I answer these questions in a way that benefits me? And it'll come up with like a few different ideas that you can use to answer the questions using your own resume. So those are just some tips that you can use. The main one is practice. Definitely look at it, analyze their job description, and practice it for yourself, line by line. All right, let me see. I've got some other people on YouTube. I got a follow-up question. Okay. Richard West has a follow-up question. He says, I'm not skipping anybody. Okay, I don't think I skipped anybody. Did I? Okay, I don't think so. Says that helps a lot. Is the format of the report similar to an ROC or more of an essay format? Okay, this is a good question. It depends on the organization. Will usually have a template that they want to see. The organization, this is really, really important. If they don't, what you want to do is break. Let me see if I can find an example. And actually, I have some downloadables that have a perfect example of this. And I don't have them on me right now, but I can find one off the internet real quick. So as I was saying, the most important thing about this is to find one in their organization, use their template of their risk assessment report. And the reason why is because if you just come up with your own and give it to them, unless they hired your company, like if they hired your company, you can come up with your own template and just deliver that to them, right? But if you're in the company and you're doing a risk assessment for them, then you want to use their template and just stick to their template is what I'm saying. I'm looking for like a way to actually write it. But if you want to get a good example of how to do it, go to ConvoCourses.com and then look for my free GRC, my free downloadables for NIST 800. And that has a breakdown of everything that you'll need. Let me see some examples. Because off the top of my head, I've got what we would do is this. As I'm looking here, the first part of the very first part of the risk assessment documentation would have the who, what, when, where, and why of the actual assessment that took place. Who did it? When did they do it? What was the scope of our assessment? Things like that. Basic information take about one paragraph or something, right? Who, what, when, where, and why of the report. Because you're thinking the main audience that's going to see this report, the main audience is going to be executives and technical people. That's your main audience. So you want to get straight to the point. Number one, who, what, when, where, and why of this report. They might see 3 reports a week. So you want to explain who did this report, when did they do this report, what is the scope of the report, and overall, how did they do? The next part is an executive summary of what happened, what did you find. The highest priority things is what you want to put next. What are the highest priorities? Now think of it like this. Like I said, they might be seeing 3 or 4 of these risk assessments a week. So now you want to get straight to the point. This is for the executives. These guys are reading tons of stuff. They got lots of stuff to deal with. So you want to get straight to the point, right? And when I say straight to the point, I mean like what you're saying is like, listen, here's the highest priorities that we found. We found 5 criticals that dealt with HTTP. We found 10 items that were mediums but are of concern because they're exposed in the DMZ. And we found 0 lows or whatever. You're just explaining the top things that you found in like 1 or 2 paragraphs. You don't want to be too verbose. You don't want to be too technical in the first executive summary. You want to get straight to the point because they have other things to do and you don't want to waste their time. So you want to get straight to the point. After that, you want to go into great detail. After the who, what, when, where, and why, what the report is, the executive summary is done. Now you can get into the gross detail, the in-depth detail. And you might even want to put that into an appendix that has a separate spreadsheet that breaks down IPs. It breaks down what actually happened at each one of those IPs. This portion of it is going to be a little bit sensitive because if you're talking about the weaknesses that are associated with individual host names, that's, somebody could use that to their advantage, especially if it's something that is external. Like if it's something that people can just access and you're telling them the weakness, now this is a sensitive document. So I'm still looking, by the way, for a risk assessment document that I could show you. But if you want an actual template and some samples of it, you can go to my site. I have free. Do it while it lasts because I'm realizing how valuable those documents are that I created. They're pretty valuable, and I've been giving them away for free for years. Check it out. It'll have a breakdown of some of the stuff that I found, some resources that you could use. But let me see. I found a couple templates right here, at least one that we could probably look at. Let me see. This is not the best. Nope, this is not. I don't like this one. I'll leave this aside. But I hope that answers your question. I've done many of these for the private and the public sector, and I could tell you that they're very different from place to place. But normally what they do is they have a template that they use. I was working with Verizon, and we had a template that we would give to our customers, and it was very clean, it was very professional, and that was the normal one that we would use over and over again. But if I was embedded in an organization, whether I worked with aerospace or worked with Department of Defense or the Air Force or Army or NASA or whatever, they internally had their own template that we would use to have a standard that everyone would use. And so I would say use that. But the breakdown of what I just told you is normally what it looks like. There's a who, what, when, where, and why. There's an executive summary. And then there is a very detailed breakdown of each one of the controls that were violated. And bear with me, I'm still looking for a good template to use. It would have been a shorter time to just go straight to my own resources, but project name, roles and responsibilities, financial impact, risk reporting. Oh man, this is not all these ones I'm seeing are not the greatest. Resource requirements, resource management. I wouldn't use this one. I'm trying to find things that I would use that I've seen before that are pretty good. System description, the scope, the purpose. What is this? It's risk assessment, report template, risk assessment approach. Okay, this one's okay. Okay, I'll show you my screen here. I found one that's not bad. All right, so here's a couple of examples of a risk report. And like I said, again, it's important to note that each organization has their own. So this one's not the best risk assessment template. You have the company name, assessment carry. I don't even know what that means. This is for safety risk. Okay, no. All right, no. Here's a better one. Okay, assessment, a risk assessment report template. You'll see that they have the report of changes. For this template, they have a description of the actual system. Like I said, who, what, when, where, and why. Like now we're explaining what system we're doing, because that organization might have multiple systems in their environment that they have to do, right? So they're explaining what the system is on this part. And then who is involved with it? Who is the point of contact for the system owner? Who's doing the actual security? Who's the ISSO, ISSM? Who's the security people? And then the scope of the actual assessment itself. What did we cover? Was it just software that we looked at? Was it a scan of the entire enterprise? That's the kind of stuff we're looking at here. So we're who, what, when, and what more details of what we're actually looking at. What is the range of the IPs that we're looking at? What methods are we going to use? What is the purpose? Why are we doing this? Maybe it's an annual assessment we're doing. The risk approach. How is it quantitative? Is it qualitative? What is the numbering system that we're going to use? It was a low, moderate, or high, or criticals, whatever. So we're explaining what methods we used, who, what, when, where, and why, all in this first part. And what's the numbering system? If we say very high, that equates to a 10. That's like adversary is almost certainly going to initiate a threat event, all the way down to very low, which is 0 to 4. Adversary, highly unlikely to initiate a threat event. And so they have a measuring system in here, all this kind of stuff. And you might, like for mine, I normally get straight to the point and then start to explain what is going on, an executive summary. And I don't explain all this stuff. The scope is there. The description of the system is there. And that's normally how those risk assessments go, risk reports go. If that helps you out, I hope that helps you. Let's see here. Got some other questions here. Go to TikTok real quick. Somebody said, if you have no IT experience at all, I'd say aim to start in help desk and mess with stuff at home. Yep, exactly. I agree. Let me see here. I want to be a network administrator. Do you have any tips? Start at home. Start at home. Start for free. Go to YouTube. Start looking up other people who are already doing what you're trying to get into. Watch their videos. Watch all their videos about, especially the stuff about the network. Being a network administrator, if you have no experience in this, you might not even want to do it. This is not for everybody. Sometimes I think people have a very glamorous view of these jobs, but they haven't ventured into actually doing the work. If you do the work and you still like it and love it and you want to go deeper and you're like, this is awesome, then go deeper. So my tip to you, if you're trying to do network admin work, is start on your own network. Right now, you are watching me on a network. You need to know things like, how many IPs do I have on my network? How many do I have a firewall on my network? How's my network protected? How could I reconfigure my network? How could I block somebody from being on my network? What kind of encryption am I using on my Wi-Fi if I have a Wi-Fi? Can I do a LAN, a local area network? You want to watch videos, start with free resources. Free resources to be your own network. What can you do on your network right now? How can you add things to your network? How could you block people from your network? What is an SSID? How could somebody infiltrate your network if they wanted to? All of that takes a certain level of knowledge that you have to start building on. There's a couple of sources that you could use. CompTIA Network Plus is good for entry level people. You don't have to take the certification. The certification is not marketable, but the content that they have is a really good start, and it's the only one that I know of, the only certification I know of that is neutral. It's vendor neutral. That means it's not based off of Cisco's networking or Juniper's networking protocols or Apple's networking protocols. It's just talking about TCP/IP, IP addresses, how you do subnet masks, what is a gateway. It's just basic networking stuff. So CompTIA Network Plus is a really great place to start if you're just wanting to know the domains to look at. Like I said, cert is not that great. I have the cert. It was not very marketable, but I mean it's okay, but not worth your time as far as taking the certification. Yeah, but those are some tips. What's your advice for a cybersecurity student? What can be the next step after graduation? So my step to you as a student, as an IT professional, if you happen to be a student, you're in a place that a lot of people don't have. First of all, appreciate where you're at, because a lot of people don't have the time, money, or resources to do what you do. It's very privileged. We take it for granted, but it's very, very privileged. The first thing you need to do right now, don't wait till do not wait. Do not wait until you get that paper. Right now, become a working student. Become a working student right now. Go to your campus, go online. Even if you're doing it remotely, they might have a position for you to help them to set up, defend, administer systems and networks within your school. Be a working student. Another option is do as many projects as you can and start to list those on your resume. If you don't have a resume, what? You don't have a resume? Make a resume right now. Make a resume right now. It's something you can do right now. Make a resume, ATS style resume. Google it if you don't know what that is. I have one you can download for free if you want it. ConvoCourses.com, ConvoCourses.net. So check out mine, figure out how to do it. Another thing you can do is go to LinkedIn and look at other people's resume. Make a resume is what I'm trying to tell you right now. Apprenticeships and internships is another thing that you could do as a student. Working student, put that all projects, any project you do, put it on your resume, put it on your profile on LinkedIn. You have a LinkedIn? Make a LinkedIn right now, immediately. Dice.com, put your stuff on there. Monster.com, put your stuff on there right now. And then apprenticeships, internships, do those if you can. What I'm trying to get you to do is get experience right now while you're still in school. With school, it's giving you the time to do nothing but focus on that craft. So right now, it doesn't have to be cybersecurity. It could be any kind of information technology, whether you're setting up a network or you're helping somebody with Wi-Fi, or you're building a computer from scratch, or you're setting up a gaming system. Do stuff right now. Do hands-on things that you can put on your resume. Do projects that you can put on your resume. Because anything you know about basic information technology is going to help you in the future in your career as a cybersecurity professional, if that makes any sense. So that's what I would advise you to do is right now, get the work in, put the time in. Don't wait till you get a piece of paper, because your experience is going to be worth more than the piece of paper. The piece of paper helps you. It helps to get the foot in the door. That's for sure. But it's very competitive. But the thing that most employers are going to look for is experience. So I'm telling you as a student, get experience as much as you can right now. And don't wait until you get a piece of paper. Yeah, thanks for the badges and roses, guys. Appreciate that. Help desk is only focusing on endpoint. That's true, but if you're a beginner, those endpoints are gonna be things that open a lot of other doors to you, because the endpoint has to communicate with a server. It has to sit on a network, so you have to know a little bit about those things to even do help desk. Like the more you do help desk, the more you have to know more and more and more about cybersecurity, about networking, about cloud. You might even have to know about cloud stuff. You have to know about software, how the software interacts with the hardware, how the hardware interacts with the operating system. So help desk is critical for people want to skip this step, and I don't understand. For all the influencers that are out there, I don't understand why they don't talk about this more. I do not understand, because it's critical to understand the fundamentals of IT before you jump into a CCNA or a Security Plus or whatever. I don't understand why they focus on that. I think some of them are very privileged IT professionals. Some of them I think are brilliant. They started at in their when they were teenagers doing software engineering or something like that, and they don't realize how brilliant they're how exceptional their case is, because most of us don't start off writing fucking code at 16 or say whatever the hell. Like that's not the case for most of us. Most of us live in the real world. You know what I mean? Like we're not born with a freaking iPad in our hand doing code. So you got to start somewhere. And I'm telling you, listen, you got to start. Help desk is the best place to start. Like that's the best place to start. I'm telling you, it's the best place. If you happen to be in school, you're a student, whatever, your exposure to fixing computers immediately is going to help you a lot. And that's what help desk does. Immediately put you in a role where you're in the organization helping fix computers. And then it expands your knowledge a little bit. And it's helping you with basic problem solving skills that surprisingly, a lot of IT professionals lack. So, yeah, that's why I say that help desk is really a good start. I did IT support specialist and data analytics. Yeah, that's another place where you can get yourself, like if you were, let's say you were stuck in data analytics and you want to expand, you could do something like you could get into the database side of it, because all that data analytics stuff, a lot of times is housed on a database. You could do database reporting. You could help with the templates for whatever tool you happen to be using. Let me see. I got some stuff on. Thank you for that $20, Larry. Larry says, Professor Messer has a free Net Plus content on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure has a bi-weekly free study stream for A Plus, Network Plus, Security Plus for your information. So for all you people who are very, very new to this, who are wanting to start somewhere, you're in another career path, and you're like, man, I don't know if I want to. This is sounding really good. These guys are paid a lot. There's more job security. I don't want to be a teacher anymore. I'm done with healthcare. I want to transition to something else. Then Larry's talking about Professor Messer on YouTube has free stuff for Network Plus, free stuff, resources, study guides for A plus. Now, I don't really teach Network Plus or Security Plus or any of that. That's not my specialty. I'm mostly cybersecurity GRC stuff. It's for people like project managers who are trying to expand, people like IT professionals who already been doing this, and things like that. Now I have some stuff like I have this, probably an entry level person could read this and get something out of it. But most of my stuff is for people already IT professionals who are expanding their horizon, trying to make more money, trying to, I'm not saying you can't watch me if you're brand new to this, but I'm telling you the truth. Like, you got to start from the bottom line. And one of the ways you could do it is go Professor Messer, go check out Network Plus, check out A plus. Like, if you're brand new, that stuff will be all eye openers to you. If you're already IT professional, you already been messing with security teams and IT teams for years or whatever, you probably don't need Network Plus. That's probably not going to help you. You probably already know all that stuff. And so there's no reason to take that. All right. Larry also says, appreciate the stream. I'm definitely going to check out the book and look forward to getting a hard copy in my library. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thanks for all your support. Thanks for continued support in cybersecurity community. I've been busy, but I still owe you an email. Yep. I'm been waiting for it, Larry. And we'll talk, man, offline for sure. Thank you guys for watching. Let me read a few more questions here. We're about an hour and 20 minutes into this, and we're just getting started. Let's see. Lotfly says, maybe you want to, okay, I think he's continuing on what he said before, or he's answering a question. Says, maybe you want to say IT support who deals also with networking, routing, switching. I did IT. I don't know if he's talking to me or somebody else on that one. Maybe, I don't know if you mean that help desk. Okay, I think maybe this is piggybacking on what you said before. You said help desk is only focusing on endpoint. Maybe you want to encourage people to do IT support who deals with networking, routing, and switching. Well, no. So I could expand it like this. I could say help desk is just one key word, but it could be called IT support. It could be called computer customer support technician. What I'm trying to do is get people into this career field, and it's not always going to have specializations like networking or routing or switching. It might not have that stuff in the beginning. What I'm trying to get people to do is get their foot in the door. And I get a lot of people asking me, like, I don't have no experience. I don't know anything. How do I get into this? What is the first role I should take? And I'll usually tell them, number one, you got to get the IT fundamentals. Number one, that's the first thing you need to do. Is nobody's going to hire you if you don't know nothing or not willing to learn. No one will hire you. Now, if you have the knowledge and you're willing to learn and you're excited about this industry, you already have the knowledge, you've already done the work, you put the time in. Now we can work with something. Now you're not a window shopper anymore. You're trying to get into this. Now you want to get your foot in the door. It's difficult. It's difficult, but it is possible. And the roles that you want to look at, if you already have the knowledge, is a local IT professional job. Sometimes it's called a field technician. Sometimes it's called IT support. Sometimes it's called help desk. I usually just say help desk because it's just easier, but there's many different names for it. The job description is really going to be the thing that leads you in the right direction. You're just trying to get your foot in the door. So in the beginning, you're not necessarily trying to specialize in anything in the beginning. You're just trying to get your foot in the door in this field, period. Then you can start to grow. And normally IT support, help desk, field technicians have to deal with some form of networking, because what computer do you know of that is not connected to any network? Not many. Like, there's some, but there's not many. Most of them, if they have to do with any kind of business essential functions, are connected to some kind of network, even if it's a small one, even if it's only connected to 2 other systems. You're going to have to deal with networking at some point. So, and then what computer do you know they don't have no software on it? Not many, right? Like, it's going to have some kind of firmware or software that you're going to have to deal with. And then you have to learn how to upgrade the software, configure it properly or add users to it. Once you get your foot in the door, you'll be exposed to networking, which includes routing and switching, which includes a little bit of software and how the software interacts with the operating, because there's going to be problems. Oh, wow, this software doesn't work with with this operating system. What operating system is it? There's different operating systems. You're going to be exposed to more and more things. So that's why I always say help desk, but that could include IT support, could include field tech or customer technical support or whatever. But first, you got to get your foot in the door. And for somebody who's absolutely a beginner, that's who I'm talking to when I speak on that kind of stuff. A lot of people just don't talk to those folks who are really, really beginners. So, and I think I know why. I can see why now, because some people are just window shoppers and they're not really serious about this. They're just in there, they're watching, but they're not really, they're trying to figure out if they want to do it or not, And I'm trying to tell you, hey, here's the path to figure out even if you want to do this. Cyber Dude 813 says, good morning from Florida. Cyber is the future, along with some AI. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Let's see. Good morning. How important is Linux in security? Linux, Windows, and Mac OS are probably the three tenets, the three things that you should probably have some exposure to as far as operating systems. Linux itself, I would say, is very important because a lot of back-end systems use some variant of Linux. Case in point, if you're on most firewalls, if you work with any firewall, normally they have they're built on some variant of Linux. And if you know Linux, if you know command lines of Linux, it opens up a lot of doors technically for you, because most other appliances are built on Linux, especially if you know the command line interface. So off the top of my head, firewalls, proxies, your phone, your Android, iOS, I believe they're based off of BDS Unix. But if you know Linux command line, you can navigate in Unix. So the reason why, that was a great question, by the way. The reason why Linux specifically is important to know, is the deeper you get into this IT space, is because so many things are based off of Linux. And the reason why is because the little bit of history of it, some dude named Linus Torvalds, some dude from Europe, he created Linux based off of, he took a Unix kernel and built Linux based off of that kernel. And then in the beginning, it was absolutely free. Well, it still is. Variants of it are still out there free. It was open source. So because it was free, unlike Windows, which it was expensive, and of course, Apple, operating systems are not free. So he made one that's absolutely free, and it was open source. So people were designing it together, like the world was in there designing it and building it and making it more robust. And it became, a couple things happened. Number one, a lot of people start making their own variants of it that other people could use to build their whole business on. It was cheap. It made a whole industry. So ATMs systems, probably some of your back-end banking systems, a lot of appliances, a lot of IoT, Internet of Things, are based off of Linux, because it's very small. Unlike Windows, it's so fat and huge, you can't just load Windows on just anything. It has to have a lot of space. It has to have a lot of RAM. Linux and Unix are very small, so you can put it on appliances that only need to measure things. You have a little device, and all it does is measure something, and it sends that measurement to your phone or something. So that's why Linux and Unix are everywhere. And even Mac OS is based off of, I believe, BDS Linux or Unix or whatever. BSD, BD, I don't know, but it's based off of some variant of Unix or Linux. And if you know the command line there, you can navigate firewalls, a back end of appliances, Internet of Things. You just start to see it everywhere. It's in Cisco devices, it's in routers, switches, it's in Juniper, it's in it's just everywhere. So it's important because a lot of back end devices and really the command line of Unix, the GUI, but the command line of Linux, super important. Yeah, super important. Different ways to authenticate customer servers. Not my specialty. Not going to speak on that. Hello. Let me see. Your website URL. Interested in your mentioned templates to check out. Yeah, you better get it while it's hot because I think I'm gonna remove that and make it paid. I get so many people downloading that stuff. I'm like, maybe I should make this. Maybe I should charge people for this. Let me see. Same as impact assessment. I think you're referring to when we were talking about a risk assessment, but I don't know your question. I think they are different though. What site are you referencing? Are you talking about ConvoCourses.net or kind of confused on that one? Keep going here. Juniper Service Gateway. Inbox me your website later. I want to check it out. The best way to do it is just to follow me. If you happen to be wherever you happen to be, follow me. It's my actual websites are in my profile because I am gonna have trouble typing this to you. Best way to retain study material. That's a good question. Best way to retain study material, and this is important because as an IT professional, regardless of what area you happen to be in, whether you're a network engineer or a software engineer or a cybersecurity person, you have to retain a lot of knowledge. My memory is not the best. You know, I'm not trying to be humble or whatever. It's really not good. It's really not good. I've learned that my strengths are comprehension. My comprehension is good. I can understand things very deeply and then explain it back to others. But my reading comprehension is slow. But once I get it, I got it. My point is, you got to know your weaknesses and your strengths. So for me, I know that my learning style is more tactile. Like if I write something down, I got it. Audio, let me back up. So everybody has a different learning style. Some people learn better if they're visual learners. If they see something, they got it, right? If they have a visual representation of that information, they really got it, right? It just clicks. Some people are audio learners. They could just sit in a lecture hall, take no notes, and they can just remember what they hear. For whatever reason, their mind just locks in to whatever information they hear. And some people are tactile or kinesthetic. I don't know what they call it these days. But if they write something down or if they do the activity, they got it, right? That's me. Like I know if I write something down or if I do the activity, I got it. And I have a very deep understanding and I can explain it back to people very easily. I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. I lean on my strengths and I abuse my weaknesses. So I know if I'm having a hard time understanding cryptography, for example, I'll just write notes on it. I'll just go to that chapter and just focus on my weakness. I'll just abuse that weakness. I'll just keep writing about and memorizing all that stuff as much as possible. That's how I retain study material. I'll focus on the thing on my strength and then use that as a tool against my weakness. And that's what you have to do. Some of you, if you know that Audio is the best for you. Use audio tools. You can use Audible is one of my favorite tools to use. But there's really great resources on YouTube. And what you could do is get up, if you have the money to do it, is get a premium on YouTube and just listen to it while you're running, while you're doing work. Because I know that YouTube, like if you're watching YouTube and you switch to something else, or you go look at your email, it automatically cuts off the audio and the visual, right? You can't hear it anymore. But if you get the premium, it'll just keep playing the video in the background, right? And I think it's like $8 a month, $10 a month, something like that, to get that premium account where it'll just play in the background. It's a great feature. Another thing is just go on the internet and find podcasts that are talking about whatever material you're trying to study, and then just listen. If you are an audio listener, my point is use audio tools. If you are a visual learner, use visual tools. If you're a tactile, use those kinds of tools. Use all the tools at your at your fingertips to get that material, to retain that material, right? And then your weaknesses, know your weaknesses. Don't sugarcoat it. I don't have a great memory on this stuff. I know I don't have a great memory. I only know cyber risk management framework. The stuff I know off the top of my head is just because I've been doing it for 20 years. I just been doing it so long. I just know it, because I've been tested on it so many times that's why I know it. But if you told me something right now, memory's not good on it. Another thing is I'm really good at memorizing concepts, but not people. I don't know why. It's just the weirdest thing. If somebody told me a concept, it's just like magic. Like if I listen to it, any concept, I get it. But if it's people, places, or things, I might as well. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with me, to be honest with you. If it's simple concepts, I get it immediately. But historical information, I'm super weak at that, man. I can't remember names. It's crazy. Know your weaknesses. Focus on that. Use your strengths. I am 37 and I'm wanting to get into cybersecurity. What advice will you give me to start with? I'd have to kind of know your field. Like, are you an engineer? Are you a mechanical engineer? Are you in the healthcare industry? Are you in what industry are you in? I'd have to know. I always tell people, start where you are. Age is not really a fact. And you're only 37, man. That's not, that's not bad. You know what I mean? Like, I never thought I'd say this, but 37 is still young. You can still do it. So you're still good. Focus on where you are. Like, whatever industry you happen to be in has cyber in it. Start with the cyber portion of it first. Know the IT portion of whatever field you happen to be in. There is an IT department. What I would do if you have a job is go to the IT department and ask them, hey, I'm trying to get in IT. Now, I know you want to do cybersecurity, but just understand that this is a huge, huge field. And you are talking about one aspect, one tiny little drop in the bucket of information technologies. Information technology is gigantic. You've got cloud computing, you got cryptography, crypto analysis, you've got networking, you've got hardware, you've got software, hardware development, software development. It's just a huge, huge field. So the IT part of it is what you want to focus on first. If you have a job, whether you're a mechanic or you're a nurse or you're whatever, teacher, whatever, they have an IT department. What I would do if I were you is I would go straight over to the IT department and say, I want to be down. I want to learn IT. Where do I start? Ask them. They might even allow you to work on the IT right there on the spot. Now you have yourself an internship in the job you're at. If you're really hungry, do on your own time, on your lunch break, go talk to IT guys. When you get off, devote an hour to go working with the IT guys in wherever you happen to work. Every place, whether it's Advanced Auto Parts has an IT department. They have a point of sale device that is connected to a network that has an IT personnel that have to come in, talk to those IT people and say, listen, I want to learn. Like, where do I start? I want to learn IT. Is there a way I can work with you to actually do the IT here? So you might be able to. That's what I did. I just did a lateral change from one organization I was in the Air Force, and I was a security guy. I was a security forces member. I did law enforcement, enforcing the UCMJ and the Air Force. That was my specialty. And weapons. I was a weapons specialist specifically. And I was like, I know I don't want to do this on the outside. I don't have the mentality or build. I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. So it was cool. I learned a lot. I'm not putting any shade on people who do that, but I just want to do something else. And I was a geek. I was already learning IT stuff. I would put my computer together for fun at home. I would mess around with software engineering, software programming. I was obsessed with it. So I knew I had the hunger for it. I actually did know some concepts of it. I knew the difference between Unix and Windows before I even started. I knew basic things. So I went, when I was in the Air Force, I asked people around. I was like, I want to go from here to here. How do I do that? I went to the IT department on base and asked them directly, and they start breaking things down to me. Everything they said was like, gave me more information because I just didn't know anything. I was an outsider looking in, and they start guiding me in the right direction. That's what you need to do. Wherever you happen to be, doesn't matter your age. Like it's not about that. Wherever you happen to be, start where you are. And you want to learn, the main thing is you want to learn basic IT first, IT fundamentals. What does it look like? And then start from there. From there, you might not even want to do cybersecurity. You might want to do cloud. You might want to do software engineering. You might have a knack for the putting computers together. There's all these different aspects of IT that I would encourage you to explore before you choose cybersecurity. All right, let me see here. I'm started studying at 21. Now I'm 24. Thanks for all your support and guidance. So true, time consuming and focus things crash start. Okay, let me see here. I'm just trying to gather some questions here from TikTok before I let you guys go. We're investing in Cobalt Strike Beacon. We try Sentinel to run queries. Do you have any suggestions? I don't know these tools. What are these tools? I'm curious. What is Cobalt Strike Beacon? Cobalt Strike Beacon. That is Cobalt Strike Beacon is that kind of like CrowdStrike? Cobalt Beacon is Cobalt Strike signature payload, designing a model of behavior of advanced attackers to perform a number of post exploitation activities during adversary so it simulates attacks to figure out how you can protect yourself. This is not my specialty. Sounds cool though. And then you said the other one was Sentinel Cyber Sentinel One Cloud Security, Cybersecurity AI Platform, Advanced. Yeah, this is really not my spec. I really can't speak on this. I was curious, but it's not my. This is like pen testing type, blue team defender type stuff. That's not my, Let me see here. I can't tell you anything about that. Please, what advice can you give someone trying to get into cyber field? I think I already answered that one. Um, there's so much learning side. Okay. What about certifications? Thanks. He does pen testing. Yeah, I guess that's pen test. That's never really not my specialty. I really can't speak on those tools. Let me see if I have any other questions here. Did I miss anything? Thank you guys for watching. If you didn't know, the very beginning of this, I started walking people through the second part of this book right here, Cybersecurity Fundamentals, where I talk about some of the things that you can do to get into it, to understand cybersecurity, GRC, governance, risk, and compliance. And right now, for the next 4 days left, it's free on Amazon on KDP. I'm looking for people to download it, to give me your honest opinion about it, or just downloading it is actually very helpful. So I appreciate everybody who's already been supporting me. I don't have a hard copy of it just yet. I'm working on that. That's coming soon. As soon as I get off of this, that's what I work on next. I do appreciate. As you can see, I don't know everything. I'm not a pen tester. I couldn't answer that last questions, and I get people asking me all kind of off the wall questions like, "Oh, what's your favorite authenticator? Like, how would you implement this brand new protocol or whatever?" I don't claim to know everything. I'm a cybersecurity governance, risk, and compliance guy. I know a little bit about networking stuff. I know a little bit about cybersecurity, threat intelligence, and cybersecurity assessments and and analysis. But I don't know everything, and nobody does. That's the thing about this field, is that there's so many different aspects of it that you don't have to know everything. You should know everything. Like, there's no reason to know everything. I've met some people who are polymaths that are very deep in several things, and it's amazing to see. But even those people, they specialize in one or two things. Um I've met some people who were very, very, very brilliant, like have a photographic eidetic memory. Um like I said, can learn something immediately. It's crazy. They're like a human computer. But even those guys in this field, you're really just doing one or two things. And anything else outside of that field is anecdotal. You you need to, when you first start, you need to have a broad understanding of IT, of the landscape of information technology. You do need to know a little bit about hardware. You do need to know how the hardware works with software, operating systems, how operating systems work with software. You do need to know networking. You do need to know a little bit about networking. You do need to know a little bit about cloud. You need to know enough to know how it all works together. But what I mean is, about not knowing everything, is that cloud goes really deep. It goes really, really deep. Software engineering has hundreds of thousands of different languages that you could learn for programming, and scripting, by the way. Those are two different things. And regular expressions, another thing. What I'm telling you is, each one of these things goes very, very, very deep. Think about the healthcare industry, where you have a doctor who specializes in just blood. You have a doctor who specializes in just surgery. You have a doctor who does not even neurosurgery. They're just analyzing the brain. They don't know how to do surgery. Two different, very deep places that are very, very close, but they don't do the same thing. You have oncology, you've got podiatry, you've got a whole nother branch, dentistry. All of these things go very, very deep, and that's what's happening with IT. IT has all of these different categories, each one going very, very, very deep. The smartest person in computers does not know everything. And they really don't really need to know everything. Just think about like doctors, like the guy who specializes in cancer research doesn't necessarily need to be a brain surgeon, right? Even though they can do both things, they're only really going to specialize in one. They're going to do one thing, maybe one and a half things, because they have to know this other thing if they're like this advanced researcher or something. You don't have to know everything. So you don't have to be discouraged by this field. Is it hard? Is it hard to enter? There is a learning curve. Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. There's a learning curve. And not everybody wants to do this, has the patience to do this. But for those who do and want to continue, you don't have to know everything. And Live and Learn says, okay, so like general practitioners versus special MDs. Yes. Specialty MDs. Like, what I mean is, what I'm trying to get at is like, in the beginning, you want to have a broad enough knowledge to understand the layout of information technology. You have to understand the basics of information technology. Once it starts to make sense, the picture starts to be exposed. You start to understand how this field works. Just like in healthcare, speaking on that analogy of healthcare, like a doctor first has to know how the body works, how the organs work with the central nervous system, works with they have to know a general understanding before they go into brain surgery, before they specialize in each one of their things. They have to have a real solid understanding of biology. And that's what I'm telling you. Like, you have to know the IT fundamentals first. Understand the body, how all the parts and pieces work first. Then you're going to specialize in something. Like, you're going to only do podiatry. You're only going to do feet. You're only going to do eyes. You're only going to do ear, mouth, throat. You're going to focus on, but you still understand how everything works. You have to know how everything works together, because one thing over here in the body might affect this other thing in the body. Really, that's kind of how you have to have a understanding first and then branch out. This is to all the people who are very new. For you guys who have already been doing this and you already know how it works there, this. I'm kind of preaching to the choir. But now, once you know this stuff, you want to specialize. And I'm telling you, like, there's certain areas that pay more, that are a little bit more rewarding, that are more exciting, that you want to try, maybe AI, maybe cloud, maybe cybersecurity. It depends. Some things are sexier than others, but start off with the body. How does this body work? How do all these IT pieces work? What are the main components? So, like, we already know, for the body is central nervous system. You got to know the heart. You got to, when you go into the doctor's office, the first thing they look at, right? They're looking at you. Okay, what is your heart rate? What is your pressure? The reason why is because they're trying to monitor the main pieces of the body that makes you work. Like, they're looking at, okay, they're asking you questions like, how are you feeling, right? They're talking about how mentally, how you're feeling. They're trying to gauge mentally how you are, how you're feeling. How's your brain? Is your brain cognitive? Are you, they might look at your eyes. They might look at your blood pressure. You're listening to your heart. They're looking at the main things that are usually, if that thing goes wrong, something else, it can trigger some other things that affect your eyesight or your, other things. So in IT, it's similar, because there's the networking is really important. The hardware and the software, how the operating system, those are like the brain, heart, and central nervous system. You got to know those main things before you specialize in the other things. I hope that makes sense. I'm saying this because I get a lot of questions about people wanting to get into cybersecurity but don't know basic things. I'm not saying that it's, not to want to pursue that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying there's a couple steps before you get to this point. Larry says, knowing what you don't know is equally important. When it comes to cyber, in order to maximize proficiency, you will have to specialize in a specific field. Eventually, I would agree. Like at some point, you'll want to you want to specialize. But this knowing what you when you first start, the best way to have a good foundation is to know all the basic things, the IT fundamentals. Once you know those things, other things start to make more sense. But you got to start with that foundation before you go to these deeper valleys and higher mountains to specialize into these other things that give you those things like work from home or more money or working in certain places you want to work or having different things. Like when you start to specialize is when it starts to get nice. It starts to get a little bit better. A lot better, actually. Let me see here. I think I am about done. Let me see if there's any other questions. Oh, okay. Here's one quick question. Zelda says, "Do you have a crosswalk between NIST CSF 2.0 and NIST Risk Management Framework 837 Rev 2? I know that there's one for NIST CSF 1.1 is mapped to Risk Management Framework. I don't think there's one out yet. Did I create one for this? I create so much stuff. I don't remember if I made one for this. But that's a good point. I'm just checking right now. Maybe they have one now. It's 800. It's 53. So NIST cybersecurity framework just upgraded from 1.0 to 2.0, and there's so many resources for 1.0 that are out there for free, but not many for the new standard that just came out. And one of the great things about NIST CSF is that it the best thing about it is that it integrates other frameworks and standards because the way it's made, it's able to integrate. In other words, like if you were working in a healthcare, you had a hospital and you had your own policy and you had to abide by HIPAA and you guys had your own security controls that allowed all the departments to abide by HIPAA, right? You have a control, but all the controls, and then maybe you have a site that's on a base, on a US base, and now you have to integrate NIST 853, which has like thousands of controls, but you don't need all 1,000 controls. You only need 100 of them, 50 of them, whatever. So CSF would be something that will allow you to line up all your NIST 800 stuff with your local hospital security controls that you have. And the way CSF is made is it allows you to do this very easily. So, well, not easily, it's going to be a lot of work, but it allows you to actually do that. And that's one of the really cool things about it. But the resources are really just coming out right now. So they don't have a lot of stuff for 2.0 just yet. And I'm looking right now for one because maybe they just released one, but I'm not finding it. I'm finding their breakdown, but I don't see a crosswalk between the two frameworks yet, unless some company is selling one. No, I don't see one. Not yet. I don't think that they have one yet. And I definitely don't have one. That's a lot of work to do that. I probably should make one if I have more time. Let me see here. Hope that answers your question though. Any other questions I missed? Let me see. All right. I think that's it, guys. Thank you so much. I've been talking for about 2 hours. Thank you for watching. I apologize for that, for the mess up on the newsletter. I put the newsletter out, put the wrong time again. I don't know why I keep doing that. But thank you for watching. I'm gonna take one last question from or comment. This one is on Instagram. I don't have a lot of people watching me on Instagram, so let me go ahead and answer this one. I'll read it. Somebody said, okay, he said, I have seen your new book on Amazon. Could you highlight overview what it entails? Yeah, I did this in the first part, and unfortunately, people who are on Instagram didn't see it because the live didn't start till later. But yeah, if you are interested in seeing a walkthrough of this free book that is Cybersecurity Fundamentals GRC, that is in KDP ebook version right now, and you want me to walk through it, I do that in the very first part of this live. So go ahead and check that out. I'm going to go ahead and end this live right now. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate everybody. It's been great. Thank you for all your amazing questions. And Larry says, don't be afraid to just get your foot in the door. The federal government has positions and they will train you. It may only pay $50,000 to start, but you have to get trained, earn pay, and get experience. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that statement. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'm out of here. I will talk to you next week.